ESPN Cleveland's Tony Rizzo, his thoughts on what's gone wrong with the Browns this year.
I think everybody is sympathetic and feels bad for Kevin because he's got to put up with a lot of crap. What he's put on the field this year is an F. An F. Getting ready for training, coming out of training camp. F. F. He's got to own it. And I know you all feel bad for him because he just got to put up with so much. He's got to, we don't really know what the hell's going on there. All I'm saying is I like Kev. I think he's a good coach. He's not without blame here. I mean, you make it sound like he had nothing to do with this. It's his friggin' team that's 2-7. Andrew's not coaching the team.
Let's welcome in Sam Monson from the 33rd Team, co-host of Check the Mic podcast. And Sam, you've got the mustache, so we'll start there. Raising money for Movember, so tell us about it.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to explain that this is not just how I generally look. This is specifically to raise money for a good cause, men's health. Movember, yeah, we're growing ridiculous facial hair over at the Check for Mike podcast, but it's all in the name of a good cause.
All right, so you look at the Browns; it's been a disaster. I mean, I could say other, but I'd be lying. There was expectations they would be contending for an AFC championship. Instead, they're contending for the first pick in the draft. My thing is, everybody, it's the personnel, it's the players, it's the coaching. It's been so bad, I don't think you can point to one thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's always a difficult situation because everybody wants to point the finger of blame somewhere, right? We want to allocate it and say, this was the problem. There it is. Once we fix that, everything's good. But inevitably in these situations, there's always more than one problem. And the biggest problem may have been DeShaun Watson and the fact that he never pulled himself out of the disastrous level of play he's been at since he arrived in Cleveland, really. And then obviously the Achilles injury gave them a chance to go in a different direction and insert a different quarterback in there. And for a brief period, Jamus Winston did spark the team, did change things, did give them a higher ceiling and all those kinds of things. But, you know, Jamus Winston is a quarterback at a certain level, and he's not going to fix a bad offensive line. You can't just immediately turn the offense back on to where it has been previously. So there are still underlying problems that are there, even with Jamus Winston. And, of course, you know, Jamus Winston is not a cure-all quarterback. I mean, he's a guy who got essentially benched or thrown out of a starting job after throwing for 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns in a single season. You know, the negatives of Jamus Winston are considerable. It's just that he's going to increase the ceiling and the variance within the offense in a way that DeShaun Watson wasn't before he got hurt.
So, you know, normally when a team underperforms this much, there are changes. Both general manager and head coach got extensions. They both report to the owner. What do you think they need to do to maintain same general manager, same head coach? Do they need to turn things around in the second half?
It's a really difficult evaluation process now, I think, that needs to go on, because ultimately they have put themselves in a terrible position because of the DeShaun Watson deal. Now, only they know how much of that was ownership driven, how much of it was Andrew Berry, the GM, you know, who was really driving that train and kind of getting that decision over the line. But if Andrew Berry was a big part of pushing that, he is effectively responsible for this millstone that hangs around their neck now. And that even if all of the other decisions he's made have been great, this is the one decision that might undermine all of it. Same thing with Stefanski. We're now saying, okay, it's definitely an indictment that he has not been able to even find the best side of all this, right? To sort of put lipstick on the pig, as it were, in terms of a franchise that's struggling, an offense that's underwater, injuries, you know, all kinds of personnel problems. And he hasn't been able to improve that. If anything, the changes that he's made, whether it's been shifting in play calling, adjusting the offense, at minimum, it's not made any impact, and maybe it's made it worse. So I think they've got a very difficult evaluation to make, saying, we know that Stefanski is a good coach. We've seen it in the past when the situation was better. Andrew Berry's made a lot of very good decisions, and this overall is an extremely talented roster, which is why, as you said before the season, we were thinking AFC title contender, not number one overall pick contender. So he's done a lot of good things, but the type of mistake that they've made with the DeShaun Watson move is generally the type that gets people fired. So I think they have a difficult offseason of weighing up those pros and cons and deciding whether they need to fire people essentially as a punishment for the failure, or if actually they can say, we have the right people to put this right. We're just in a really tough spot now.